here I've got in front of me Behringer's RD-9, which is their take on the legendary and ubiquitous Roland TR-909. Now this is analog, it's full size, it cost me around £300, and when you consider the originals are over 3,000, this is looking like a pretty good bargain, isn't it? I've never seen an original for less than £1,000, and I was looking for them back in the 90s. So they've always been really well respected, especially as they've been used on basically hundreds or thousands of records. I do have the TR-09 from Roland, which is Roland's digital ACB take on it, but this is really small. I like it. It sounds like a 909, and it's really handy for doing in the videos. I do a lot of stuff for ClubbingTV and doing a little demos for them. It's brilliant for just setting up a quick rhythm before a demo one of the synths. But it's tiny, it's only got these small outputs. But when we look at the RD-9, we've got outputs for each of the voices. These are unbalanced. We've also got 3 trigger outs. One's the rim, I think, one's the hi-hat, and one's assignable. We've got sync in and out. We've got MIDI in, out, and through. We've also got a USB, which can be used for MIDI and for syncing to the Synth Tribe app, where you can see all the global settings, update it, and also edit the sequencer. Then we've got the main out, which is TRS, headphones, and we've got this return as well, and that's really handy because you can send anything you like to the effects, bring the effects back in through the return, so you're not having to send lots of different leads to your mixer if you're on stage. So it looks the part. It's got nice chunky knobs, you know, compared that to the Roland. Obviously, these are tiny, these are full size. But does it sound anything like a 909? So before I kick off, I'll just play a few of the sounds, shall I? So that sounds like a TR-909 kick. I don't know if it's exactly the same, but it's definitely got the same feel. Moving over to the snare. Again, that's definitely got the feel of the 909. Let's listen to the toms. Not being really clinical here, but it does sound like a 909. It's definitely got that character. Let's try the rim and the clap. Is what it is. Again, it sounds right. And actually, I was really impressed by them because it's notoriously difficult to get 909 sounding hats because they were a digital sample, so trying to get that exactly the same. And I'll put them against the TR-09 in a minute, just briefly, but they're really, really good. So I can't tell you if the tuning on them is identical or not, but everything sort of sounds like a 909. If I had that in front of me and it was in a 909 case, I wouldn't be able to tell the difference. But just because that's what people are interested in, let's just put it up really, really quickly against the TR-09. And yes, I am aware that this isn't an original TR-909. If someone's got one they want to lend me, quite happy to take a look at it as well. But this is the closest I've got, and I think Roland will have done a really good job in getting this very close. So it's not a comprehensive review there. I've got the delays on full and I've got the attack on 0. I'm just going through the tuning and things, but I'm getting a bit more grit from the TR-09 than I'm getting from the RD-9. It sounds a bit more boingy, if that makes any sense. Let's try the snare. So it sounds like I'm getting a little bit more decay again. It sounds almost reverby, doesn't it, on the TR-09? But I don't know what the settings are in this. I don't know if it's exactly matching a TR-909 or if there's some sort of little additional extras and it takes it a little bit beyond, because the tuning on the bass drum and the snare seems to be slightly different. So there are differences, they're not identical, but again, like I keep on saying, this isn't a 909, so don't hammer me about that. But yeah, it doesn't sound identical to the TR-09, whatever that means to anyone who knows. Let's just try the hi-hats as well, shall we? We've actually got an enhanced mode on this. You can see this tune knob here, so you can tune the hi-hats as well. So let's just try that a little bit higher. You can hear this one's cutting off a bit quicker, can't you? It could be because inside this pattern I've got the closed hi-hat as well. So real differences there between the Behringer and the Roland when you start analysing in a little bit more detail, but it does have the same character as the 909. I've been playing with it all weekend and I hadn't really noticed it didn't sound really the same, but you know. So should we take a look at how this works then? Should we go through sort of the front panel first, I suppose? Obviously these are the sounds and we picked them with these buttons here. Here I'm putting them in solo mode, but unlike on the original 909, you can actually play the sounds without programming it. Not very easy to do finger drumming on, but it is handy for tuning in your sounds. And you'll notice here we've got these two extra knobs that you don't have on a 909, just like you've got this extra one, this extra tuning one on the hi-hats, and these are enhanced mode. When I played the kick earlier, I didn't have it in enhanced mode, now it is, which is why it's a lot different. So I might have been able to get it a little bit closer to the TR-09 using these two knobs here, because as I say, I wasn't using them earlier. We've also got the accent as well. Accent doesn't have its own selector key. If you want to use accent when you're programming, you tap and hold select, and then you can program in your accents. And you can see there, maybe, I'm not sure if it'll show up on the camera, but these have lit up white, and that means the overall accent is on those beats. See what that does. Maybe not the best beat to be showing that on, but let's move over to the top left, shall we? We've got the master output, which is turned quite low at the minute. Let's just make sure everything's up on the levels so that we're not getting any huge discrepancies on the gain. And one thing to note is that I actually do get a lot of gain out of this. So we've got the effects section up here, which is exactly the same as you get on the RD-8, as far as I can tell. We've got a filter, which has got a high pass mode and a low pass mode, resonance, and anything that comes through this wave designer, that's a bit like a transient designer, goes through the effects if you turn it on anyway. And then that goes out of the main out, not of the individual outs on the back. And I think an improvement on the RD-8 that I demoed a couple of years back is that you can parameter lock the effects, and you can also sort of twist it and save it in the pattern as well. I'll show that later. Then we've got the edit mode buttons here, save, copy, erase, and dump. And actually, it's really easy to do anything on this. Just sort of much simpler than trying to use this thing. Every time I try and do bits and bobs on that, I get a little bit lost at times. So yeah, this is really simple, and I'll run through that in a second. Then we've got song mode, pattern mode, and step mode. Song mode obviously links patterns, pattern mode links the steps, and step mode is where you program everything. We've got sync here, so we can do internal, via MIDI, via USB, or by external trigger. And I've tried the internal, the MIDI, and the USB, and it works. On Logic, I had to actually just knock the USB back and forth a few milliseconds, depending on the tempo, but it does work. Then we've got the tap and hold button, and this has got multi-functions basically. If we look at holding that down, we can see this light getting brighter and darker, but it's a bit like a shift key. So if we tap and hold and press record, we're in manual mode, so nothing is saved until you save it. And then auto mode, which is what I like to use, is that as you do your little edits, it automatically saves it to the pattern that you're editing. But there's a few other little things that does as well when you're in settings mode as well. But basically, it's like a shift key. Then record, play, and pause. And stop, I suppose, as well. Here we've got the data modes, so tempo. Then we've got swing, and we can push and drag, so we can go sort of positive and negative. Until it's completely out of time. We've also got access to the global probability percentage here, anything between 0 and 100%. And in the settings, you can go in and on each step for each instrument to decide on the probability of it actually playing. Then we've got the Flam amount as well, and you can put Flam on any of the instruments. So moving down or moving across, we've got the length. We can have up to 64 steps. We can auto scroll and we can flick through the various pages. So at the minute, this is on 16. Let's put it on 64 steps, and then we can scroll through them. Or you can manually scroll so you can stay on the one page, but it's really easy to set the length, as I say. So let's go to 32, press that, and now it's 32 long. Come back here, now it's 16 long, really simple. And you can have anything between 0 or 1 and 64. And we can see here, when I change the length, we can see that there's nothing on 32. Now that's pink, so we know the end's there. Got to 64, now the end's in the 64 category. If we go to 48, so they're full. 64 is where we've got the actual end position. And then over here we've got the step repeat and note repeat, again like the 808, so we can repeat individual steps or a number of steps, or we can repeat a note, so like ratchet a note. So let's take a look. I'm not sure if it's showing up on the camera, but we could see there that we were getting a loop basically between these 4 steps when it's on 4. It's now looping these 4 steps. And we can loop up to 8. Very nice. So let's go to the note repeat. Go to note repeat and we've picked the snare drum there. Let's take that swing off, shall we? Back to 50. That's playing 16ths. Now I can play 32ths. And you can save that per step using this repeat function. I'll show that again later. It just means you can have really nice variations and actually sort of tune things on it as well. Okay, then we come to the main 16 steps, and that's pretty obvious, but if we look above them, we can see they've all got additional functions in the settings. Then over on the right hand side, we've got mute and solo. So actually I had everything soloed there. It's a bit of a crazy pattern with everything in here, just so that you can sort of hear what it all does. Okay, and then down here, so we've got the settings button and we've got the autofill button. So these last 4 patterns are autofill patterns, which will only repeat once if you press autofill before you play it. So it's gone back to pattern 4. That's a really basic overview of all the functions of it. I've not gone into what the settings do. I'll do that later, shall I? First off, I think let's just show you how to make a beat, how simple it is. So we're in song mode. We can pick 1 to 16 songs, and in each of those songs, we've got 16 patterns. So let's go into song 9. Let's have a listen to what's on pattern 1. Okay, let's delete that. So go into erase, pattern 1, erase, now that should be gone. There we go. Let's check the tempo. You can set the initial tempo in Sync Tribe or in this, in the settings. Let's put it at 120, a bit more sensible. So we go into step mode and we press record. And we've got that, as you saw earlier, in auto mode, so it'll automatically save everything as I do it. We could turn that into manual mode, but I like it on auto. So bass drum on beats 1, 5, 9, and 13. Press it once, it flashes. I don't know if you can see that on the camera. And one sort of negative I've got about this is that these lights are actually really hard to see. Easy to see in the studio where everything's dark, but actually out here in daylight, I can't quite see. I've got to really lean over it. Once you lean over it, you can see it. So maybe it is actually showing up on the camera. Hit it once, you get the sort of lower velocity. And again, and it's solid, and you get the sort of louder velocity. So. Super simple, and I've left the length at 16 just to make it easy for me. I showed you earlier how to change the length of the pattern. So you go into length, wanted it 32, go into 32, press that, now we're in 32. If we go to 48, you can see that from 33 to 48 aren't used because they're flashing red. If we come back to 32, we could have it at 16 plus 8, so that's 24 steps, and these 8 steps are flashing because they're not being used. But let's put it back to 16. Come out of length. Let's add a snare. Some hi-hats. Super simple, but maybe we want to extend that now and make it into 32 step pattern. So we press length and we can see here that copy is flashing, and that means we can copy this, go to 32, save it, and now steps 17 to 32 will be a duplicate of what was in the first page. Auto scroll on, so it's showing one page then the next. Take auto scroll off, so I'm just looking at page 32, and let's put a little snare roll at the end of that. So that's about it. I'm trying to think of other bits to show you, but it's so simple. Okay, actually, yeah, let's show you the effects and recording the effects, shall we? So we'll pick what we're going to put in the effects. So we'll put the bass drum and the snare drum, for example, and they've highlighted in pink, and maybe put the hi-hats as well. Really nice that you don't lose any bass when you've got the resonance up. But we can save that, so let's do that. Let's put the resonance up and let's do a little high pass twist at the end of that, at the end of around step 32. So we come out with send, press record. And you'll notice that the rim isn't going through the effects because it wasn't chosen as a send. If we go to the sends, put the rim shot in there as well. Turn the effects off. And when this is flashing, that means that the sort of automated effects you've put in there have taken control, as it were. But as soon as you twist it, it goes into manual mode. and you toggle manual mode and automated mode using tap and hold and on. So this is manual mode. I'll now put it into automated mode. Yep, super simple. It doesn't record the attack or the sustain. If we just listen to the kick going through this, go back to the send, turn all them off. Let's have a listen to the kick. So the knobs pretty much do what you think. The attack adds more transient, adds more attack to a sound, and the sustain adds sustain or takes it away. Really quite simple, but quite effective. And then we've got the edit modes. So let's just take another quick look at these. So if we want to copy a pattern, go into pattern. Which pattern are we on? We're on pattern 1. Let's play pattern 2. Now let's play pattern 1 again. So they're definitely different. Let's copy pattern 1 and put it into pattern 2. So if we go copy to live pattern, select pattern source, 1. Source 1 selected, press copy. To copy it, select pattern, destination. It's all really, really simple. Destination is going to be 2. Copy it. So if we go into 2, if we want to save that, I don't really want to save it because I'm not sure what I'm actually deleting there. But it's save, select, and then save. So you select the song and pattern to save, but you can't copy patterns from one song to another. So if song 1, you've got a really brilliant fill in it, you can't put that into song 2. Not sure why. Maybe they could do that in an update. Okay then, let's go down to the settings, shall we, and take a look at them. So if we go into settings mode, we're now in sort of level 1 of the settings. There's 2 levels. When this is lit, we're in level 1, which means you're selecting one of these top ones. So we'll select MIDI now. It's flashing, which means we're in the MIDI selection section. And we're selecting the MIDI channel. So we're MIDI out at the minute. So settings again, and we go back up to the level to select the next one. USB, in or out. And then we've got the USB MIDI channels. So we'll have it out for now. We'll have it on channel 1. Back up the level, clock, it's now flashing, we're in clock. And all this is doable within the app, Synth Tool, which is actually easier to do it in there, but you can do it all on this. So go back up to there, map. That sets the MIDI mapping for each of the sounds. So now we're on the bass drum, which is 36 normally, snare drum's on 40, etc., etc. Back up the level, now we go to the preferences, and this is where we've got the enhanced mode on or off. So I like it off. But when we're in pattern mode and we're in settings, we can also do all sorts of different things, filter modes and what else? Auto preferences, poly mode preferences. You can set all the preferences without using the Synth Tool app. But let's come out of that. Go into filter. Now what this filter does is it changes the filter amount per step. So if we go to step 1, it's on 51. So those tweaks I did earlier, that's them saved here. So let's put the first few on 0, shall we? So if we play that now, So I've put them on 0 and you can hear it dropping down to 0. And then on step 5, I've tried it on step 4 as well, but there's nothing playing on step 4. On step 5, I've put it on full, so it goes from 0 to 255. So I'm parameter locking the filter steps there. Okay, let's take that off. Let's go into poly mode. And this is where we set the polymetric mode basically. So it's off or on. So we're on polymetric on at the minute. And on the bass drum, we have got 16 steps. So let's change that to 17, shall we, and see what happens. So it should all start going slightly out. And there you go, it's gone slightly out. So you can change the actual length of the pattern for each of the individual instruments. So snare drum, low tom, let's put the low tom, I actually don't think it's playing. Let's put the closed hi-hat on 1, shall we? So go to length, page 1, 1. That's not playing either. What about the snare? Should we put the snare on 6? Hopefully you've got the gist. Let's turn that off. So next up, we've got random. So go back up the level and then we'll go into random. And random mode will randomly play one of the instruments you've selected on the beats that you select. So let's put our beat or step 15 and let's select the toms. So there you go, added a few more while I was doing it, but let's take them all off for now. Let's take the randomization off in case I get confused later on. Okay, probability. Now probability is the probability that something will actually play on the beat. So if we go into probability, go to the kick drum, go to step 1, we'll change the probability. Now this is a probability is a global setting, so all probabilities are the same. So we should get no kick drum on beat 1. 35%, let's do a 60%, let's do 67%. So the probability amount is global, but you can set it per step, per instrument. Back up a level and then we come over to Flam, and we all know what Flam is. So the Flam amount we've got here, and that's accessible whenever you like through this data mode button. But let's add a snare Flam, so go to the snare on those 2 beats. Should we try a Flam on the hi-hat? So go to the closed hi-hat. Playing there. Let's just go back into the probability and make sure it's all up to 100. So it's working on the closed hats as well. And now this is the really fun one. This is repeat. Let's take the Flams off, shall we? You can see the lights up pink. I'm doing this because it's quite bright here, so you've got to be right over it to do it. But if I go right over it, I'm sticking my head in the way of the camera if I do it now. But yeah, it's quite bright, and they could do being brighter just for the purposes of this video, I think. Okay, let's go into repeat then. So we're still in settings mode, press repeat, and then we can see how many repeats we're gonna do. So on the snare drum, let's go to beat 5, shall we? Let's put it on really fast. So there, I've got 8 repeats on step 5 and 4 repeats on step 13. And you can do that for anything. And actually, if you change the swing amount, you start getting different tunings. So loads of fun to be had in there, and there's lots of examples of that in the demo patterns. So then we've got 8th, got triplet, 16th, 16 triplet, 32s, and they're basically just the timing of the pattern. Let's take those repeats off, shall we? So go back into repeat, put them on 1, which is 1 repeat, which isn't a repeat. And then we come back into there and we'll have this, the triplets. So they're all the basic functions. I think I've showed everything there is to show, except how to chain patterns to create a song and how to chain songs to make a set. So let's take a look at song mode. So we'll go into song mode, press 16, we're on song 16, go into pattern. There's nothing saved here anyway. So we'll want, I don't know, let's start off with pattern 9. Press auto scroll, so that it scrolls from one to the next. And we'll have that 3 times, shall we? And then we'll go to pattern 4, and we'll have that 4 times. Then we'll go to pattern 7, and we'll have that 5 times. Then we'll go to pattern 12, we'll have that once. Then we'll go to pattern 10, and we'll have that twice. And you can see as I do this, it's filling up these steps here. So if we go back, we can see we've got once, 3 times, 4 times, 5 times. But what I can't see is which of the patterns I've selected. So that's just a little bit difficult to understand actually. So on step 1, we've got 3. And the second pattern is played 4 times. And the third pattern is played 5 times. The fourth pattern is played once. But it'd be quite good if you could see which patterns it was actually referring to, if that could flash pink or something like that. But it's not exactly difficult to do, is it? You know, you're limited to 16 patterns anyway. So yeah, I think actually that does finally bring me to the end of this. So what are my final thoughts on it? Well, considering it's only £300, I've got absolutely 0 complaints. The only thing I've found that doesn't really work, that was a bit awkward actually, was tap. So if I go into step mode, so I'm playing this at 99 BPM. I can go up to 200 or 240, but I can't get really low. I couldn't go back to 99 now, so 2, 3, 4, dum, dum, dum. It's not moving. So if we go fastish, I can start slowing it down bit by bit, bit by bit. Can I get any slower? Just about. So it's really, really difficult to do. I'm trying to slow it down to 99 and I can't do it. So I think that seems like a firmware thing because it seems to be registering that I'm clicking it. There you go. Do it fast. It really works like it should. But just slowly. So it seems like the button's working like it should, as I say, but it's not actually tapping the tempo. And I've no idea why that is. I've done it when it's playing. But I can't get any slower than that. So yeah, bit awkward. But you know, that very, very minor niggle aside, and maybe the lights could be a bit brighter just because unless you're actually right above it, they're quite difficult to see, which I've noticed while I've been making this and the video I made looking at sort of emulating classic patterns. But other than that, and I'd say other than that, I'm not going to send it back because of either of those things. I think it's a brilliant, brilliant machine. Yeah, it doesn't sound exactly like the TR-09 from Roland. Whether that sounds exactly like a 909 itself, who knows? And whether I had another 909 here, I'm very convinced that other people say it doesn't sound anything like my 909. So, you know, it's one of those things. It's based on a 40-year-old instrument. Each of those 40-year-old instruments will sound different. And there's videos of people doing that with 808. So it will be really interesting. If 4 or 5 people want to lend me their TR-909s, I can rack them up and I can see exactly what we'd expect the differences to be. But when I played it without checking it against anything else, it just had the right sort of feel. And that's what's important. So yeah, I think this is a great thing and absolutely worth the £309 I spent on it. Well, I hope that was of use to somebody somewhere, and if it was, please subscribe and maybe go to my Patreon page and join me there. Support the channel for the price of a coffee a month. And I will see you next time.